Hello again and welcome to Island Outlook on the stations of Connoisseur Media, Long Island. I'm Frank Brinka. Each and every year about this time we talk about a very worthwhile program that has helped so many Long Islanders get through winter. And we have had a tough winter and we've never needed Project Warmth more than we've needed it this winter. Project Warmth is a program of the United Way of Long Island. Michael Cooney is here. Michael is Director of Special Projects for United Way. Also joining us, a tremendous supporter of Project Warmth, the National Grid Foundation, in the form of Bob Cattell. We'll be talking to both gentlemen in just a moment here. Michael, let me just start out by welcoming you back to the show and also asking you how Project Warmth works and how did it come about?
Well, thanks, Frank. It's great to be back, and appreciate it. Thank you for inviting Bob and I again this year. Project Warmth has been around since 1995 and was really created in the midst of the realization that periodically many people will go through some type of financial crisis and need help paying their utility bills. People are often confronted with the difficulty of choosing which bills to pay. And obviously, food has to be bought, rent has to be paid, and oftentimes, medical prescriptions and utilities are often not paid when they need to be paid. So the program has been around since 1995. It's helped about 23,000 families during that period of time. And essentially it provides emergency fuel assistance to families who find themselves in some type of financial crisis, whether that crisis has been brought about by loss of employment, a child becoming sick where both parents or one of the parents has to stop working to take care of the child, the death of a spouse, any sort of type of an emergency that can lead someone to experience a financial crisis.
Now, the people who are eligible for Project Warmth have pretty much come to a point in their bill-paying practices where they can't pay their bills. This is not a program you can get in on just when you need fuel. You pretty much have to be facing shut-off?
You have to be either facing shut-off, close to being terminated, or having a heat provider refuse to come to your house to put oil in your tank. Interestingly enough, we do not have the strict type of financial eligibility criteria that you would find in the federal low-income heat program. We realize that there needs to be some flexibility in the eligibility criteria. So if someone can prove to us through their application that they are in desperate need of assistance and are experiencing a financial crisis for a legitimate reason, we're often more than willing to help them out.
Now, the people who supply heat, the electric company, the gas company, the fuel oil companies, they're all on board with this.
Yeah, they've been actually supportive of this program from the very beginning. National Grid is a great financial supporter of the program, and we also have a great relationship with them and all the oil companies on Long Island, who once we provide them with payment will continue to provide services basically for the rest of the winter to those particular clients who we help.
We have a lot of winter to go, at least a lot of cold days. Maybe not a lot of winter technically, but we have a lot of cold days, a lot of cold nights, and a lot of kids potentially waking up in cold homes. How can people determine if they're eligible? They have to have a turn-off notice in front of them. They have to have a refusal from a supplier to apply. And how do they apply?
They can go to one of 15 agencies located in Nassau and Suffolk County and fill out an application. They can go to our website at www.unitedwayli.org to find those organizations and their locations. So all they have to do is go to an organization, fill out an application, work with the caseworker. The application will be forwarded to us for approval. Once we approve it, we send the check to either National Grid or the oil company. And for example, with an oil company, heat is usually on within 2 days.
I was going to say, how long would it take to get approval?
It's really an expedited process.
Bob Cattell is with us. Bob is currently the chairman of the board of the Advanced Energy Research and Technology Center at Stony Brook University, but he ran the U.S. version of National Grid for many years, the electric side, when National Grid, up until recently, was managing the electric grid for LIPA, and still, of course, National Grid being Long Island's gas company. And he's here today on behalf of the National Grid Foundation. And National Grid has been on board with this from day one, and some people probably thought, well, what's going to happen when the electric contract changes over, as it did at the first of the year to PSEG, things like that happen. But National Grid has stayed a major supporter of Project Warmth, and over the years, they've seemed to added more and more support financially, which is where it counts.
Well, Frank, yes, and thank you for having us back here. It's hard to believe it's another winter.
We've done this show many years.
We have, but this has been quite a winter this year.
Oh, it's been horrible.
Don't get me started. I don't think it's over yet.
Don't get me started.
I think it's over yet.
I mean, how many nights have we been down? And I mean, really, it's been horrible.
Yes, it really has. But as you point out, National Grid has been on board from the very beginning. It actually goes back to when Keyspan came out to Long Island in 1998. And we have had a great relationship with United Way over many, many years. And we participated in the Project Warmth prior to the formation of what was the Keyspan Foundation, which was then embraced by National Grid. And the National Grid Foundation, since 1999, has been a full financial supporter of this program.
A lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Over the years that we've supported, we have contributed about $1.25 million to the program. We contributed $150,000 this year, which is the largest contribution that we made to any organization.
These are corporate funds.
These are corporate funds.
This is not ratepayer money. This is out of the bottom line.
This comes from our shareholders.
There you go.
This does not come from our ratepayers. But we think it's good to be a good corporate citizen, and that's why the National Grid Foundation has embraced the program. There's probably more of a need this year than we've ever seen, as has been said before. It all started with Storm Sandy, people recovering from that, the hardships that people on Long Island have suffered this last year, and then having perhaps one of the coldest winters that we've ever had, and it ain't over yet. So it's a very worthwhile program, and we're delighted to be partnering with United Way. They manage the program for us. They're one of the finest not-for-profit organizations in the country, and they handle all the administrative work to be sure the right people are getting the money quickly, as was indicated before, so the heat can get turned back on.
Michael, Bob makes a point, going back to Sandy, not to get too far off the topic of Project Warmth, but, Sandy hit just as the heating season was really kind of kicking in, because I was one of the fortunate Long Islanders. I had no electric or heat, but only for like 3 days. That's just the way it turned out. But I'll tell you, it was cold at night, and it was a reminder that the heating season is here. Was the heating season that fall and winter exacerbated by Sandy? Was there even a bigger demand on Project Warmth because people had to use money for so many other things just to stay alive?
Yeah,
was it a tough year?
Absolutely, Frank. Should also note that last year, right after the hurricane, we were called by National Grid Foundation to receive a gift of $250,000 to help Long Islanders recover from Hurricane Sandy. And we used that.
That was a good call.
That's a great call.
That's a call you're glad to take.
That's one of the great things about the foundation is that you don't have to call them; they call you. So the community is always kind of on their radar screen.
There's always been that culture there, whether it was Keyspan and when and National Grid, and when they were doing basically Long Island's electric work on behalf of LIPA. Whenever there was something going on in the community, I mean, it didn't have to be this. I mean, the blood drives, the whatever. Those people, the people in the office, the people in the trucks, they would just turn out like nobody's business. They were always there, and quite frankly, it goes back to the Lilco days as well.
Sure. I mean, between Bob's team and members of Local 1049, they really are, in my humble opinion, the model of corporate philanthropy. They are just there for you anytime you need them.
For people who are listening to this and saying, okay, this all sounds very good, but I'm running out of heat and I'm looking at the cutoff and you guys are talking about this, that, and the other thing, I need to get on board with this program. Where do they go? You said there's a website. Give us an example of some of the places. I don't expect you to memorize all 15 of them, but give us a couple of places that people can go to. Is Family Service League still one of the places you can go?
Absolutely.
Because there's several branches of that.
Yeah.
He's looking for his paperwork. You can't see that on the radio. It's okay, though. He brought paperwork.
So they can go to Family and Children's Association in Hempstead,
Right.
Long Island Council of Churches in Hempstead, Catholic Charities in Hicksville, the Family Service League in Huntington, Colonial Youth and Family Services in Mascot Beach, Education Assistance Corporation in Hempstead, just to name a few.
They do a lot. They do nice work too. They just show up and fill out an application.
That's all they have to do, but they have to actually
You
go
have
to
to
the
go
facility.
there,
Can't
and
do it online.
what should you bring with you?
Bring
That
every source
that-
of
yeah.
income that you have,
Okay.
and bring virtually a copy of every bill that you have to pay on a regular monthly basis, because we're going to evaluate your income versus your expenses and make a determination as to whether you have the resources to pay for this on your own or whether you actually need the help.
And
Take
the public can
project.
actually can contribute to Project Warmth, and we'll tell you how to do that a little later on. And they should know that if they do send money to Project Warmth at the United Way, the money doesn't go to the people who need the help. It goes to the people providing the fuel, because there's always an element of question there as to whether or not the money will be used for the purpose in which it was intended. And you
Absolutely,
take that
right.
out of the equation, the money goes right to the fuel oil or gas provider.
That's actually the way that we ensure that the donor's intent is actually maintained. Money has always gone directly to either National Grid or LIPA or to an oil company on behalf of a client. So it's kind of our good housekeeping seal of approval that the donor's money will
Well,
be
sure,
used
people
as
want to know
intended.
that, because there are always people in any situation who might improperly use the situation, and you don't want people's money, their donations, going to the wrong place or for the
Absolutely.
wrong thing.
Absolutely.
Do you deal with the Long Island Oil Heat Institute as well as National Grid? Or
Yes, we
you
do.
And,
Actually, we have a small committee of professionals in the energy field who provide some guidance and some wisdom in addition to financial resources. And the Oil Heat Institute has been on board for probably 4 or 5 years.
now, you talked about bringing some documentation with you as much as you can about your income and so forth to make sure that you're truly eligible. What about the undocumented population on Long Island, who are often the people who need this help? Is it more difficult for them, or what can they do, or is there an avenue for them to take advantage of this program?
I think that we certainly do serve that population. I'm not sure whether it's more difficult for them in terms
Well, when you
of-
start talking about documents, some folks, are leery of that because they may not have what everyone else has, and they may be unwilling to divulge too much information given their personal situation.
Yeah, my suggestion to them would be to go to one of the agencies, see a caseworker, and that caseworker will advise them and try to walk them through the system.
Because these agencies that you mentioned work with folks in that situation all the time.
All the time.
So they are really the good place to go, because if there's a way to, to get past whatever questions need to be answered with limited documentation, those are the agencies that would know how to do it,
Right.
because they do it all the
Right.
time.
Yeah, the idea of the project, the goal of the project, as you know, is to make sure that children and adults do not go through winter freezing and, living in a cold, unhealthy household. So we will try to help as many people as we possibly can who meet the eligibility criteria.
Are they also required to sign up for long-term help? Is this kind of a,
It's
teach them to fish kind of thing?
That's actually a good point, Frank.
Apply for HEAP or something like
if
that?
you are eligible for HEAP, you have to apply for HEAP
Right.
before we will,
Because that's the first line
yeah,
of defense. in this.
we're kind of the project of last resort in that regard. The other fact is that when they go to see the caseworker at the local agency, it's that caseworker's job not only to help them with the application, but to do an assessment of what brought them to the agency to request assistance.
To make it better, to give
make-
them a
so,
long-term
you know,
plan.
their job is to also to identify and mobilize community resources that are available to help that particular family.
Because if you can do that, they don't have to come back next year with the same
Absolutely.
situation.
We actually see about 80% of the clients who requested help, in 1 year do not come back the following year. And we also have a policy that will only help you for two consecutive years.
Right.
Because it is a crisis program, it's not an entitlement
It's
program.
not something you should plan in your
Correct.
budget every year.
Correct.
But the fact that you just said 80% don't come back next year shows that help that they are sort of pushed in the direction of, if you will,
Absolutely.
it does benefit people.
Absolutely. I mean, the program falls under the United Way position of increasing financial independence. And certainly what we don't want to see is families coming back year in and year out. So the mobilization of those community resources by the caseworker is really a critical element of the program. Probably over the long term, more important than the immediate grant that we provide.
He is Michael Cooney. He is Director of Special Projects for United Way of Long Island. Bob Cattell is with us, too. He is currently with the Advanced Energy Research and Technology Center at Stony Brook University, but he used to run National Grid in our part of the world, and he's here today on behalf of the National Grid Foundation. When the electric contract was destined to change, was there any thought at National Grid, since you're still Long Island's gas company, was there any thought to maybe altering National Grid Foundation's participation in this, or was that never even on the table?
That was never on the table, Frank. As was nicely said, we care about the community. We want to be part of the community support. The National Grid Foundation, in addition to Project Warmth, supports educational, environmental efforts on the island and tries to improve the quality of life on Long Island. So it's part of our fabric. And I would also like to compliment our employees. They've been a big part of the program, both our management employees, Local 1049. They've all supported the program. And I would also like to encourage people, your listeners, to support this program. They can contribute to the program, Project Warmth. They will get yellow envelopes in their public service now, electric bills.
A couple of times a season, yeah.
That's right, and you can contribute that way, or you can contribute through the National Grid, through the United Way website. Mm-hmm. And I think what's the letters of the website again there?
It's www.unitedwayli.org.
So you can contribute directly that way, and we'd encourage people to do that. Our employees do that, and other people can help those in need on Long Island by contributing to Project Warmth.
Michael, UnitedWayLI.org, you can actually use a credit card at that.
Yes, you can.
And you can contribute to Project Warmth specifically.
Yes.
And National Grid Foundation does some other work as well. The Project Warmth isn't the only thing they're involved in. Can you give us a couple of ideas of what else?
Yeah, one of our major focuses in the foundation is education, trying to help young people get a good education so they can advance themselves in life. So there's a number of educational programs that the foundation supports on Long Island and in other parts of our territory. Also in the environmental area. The improvement in the environment is very important, particularly to an energy company like National Grid. So organizations on Long Island who support the environment, the Nature Conservancy and organizations like that, are also being supported by the National Grid Foundation.
Now, National Grid is a multinational corporation. I mean, this is all over the world, not the whole world, but a good part of the world.
Yes.
And we have them here in America.
National Grid is a global energy
and
company.
that's not a bad thing.
And that's a good thing. It gives us tremendous resources, gives us tremendous reach, gives us a lot of financial stability, capability. In addition to being on Long Island, National Grid does serve New York City, serves Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So we have to spread our resources around a little bit, and we do the best we can. But we've made a major focus here on Long Island because, as was indicated, because of the tremendous need, starting with Superstorm Sandy and then running into one of the coldest winters ever.
Michael Cooney, is it worse this year because of the cold, or is that not necessarily a barometer? I mean, when do requests start coming in, and how long do you get them?
We have received, Frank, requests start to come in January 2nd. In 6 weeks that we have been open, we have received virtually twice as many requests.
Wow, than last year?
Than last year.
Oof. And last year wasn't exactly a slack year.
No.
Why? Why so many more?
You know, there are multiple reasons. The recession has not ended on Long Island. There are still people who are unemployed. 180,000 people are on food stamps, which is the highest in the island's history. Unemployment benefits ceased on December 31st. So while 98% of Long Islanders are doing well, there's certainly a small group of people who are not. Again, with the increase in temperatures this year, has really placed an incredible demand on Project Warmth. We have Hurricane Sandy victims who are calling for help. Still, basically because, as you said before, they've depleted all their personal resources to repair and rebuild their homes. We have returning veterans who are returning to situations that are just unconscionable, in some regards. Lack of a job, homelessness, mental health issues, et cetera. So we're seeing a tick up in requests from veterans. So it's kind of a convergence of elements that have produced this really incredible demand for assistance this year.
You're listening to Island Outlook on the stations of Connoisseur Media of Long Island. I'm Frank Brinka. My guests are Bob Cattell from Advanced Energy Research and Technology Center at Stony Brook University, here on behalf of the National Grid Foundation. National Grid, an organization he knows very well, having run it in this part of the world. For how many years, Bob?
My goodness, you want to go back that far, Frank?
Well,
I
I
started
go
as a
back
young
that
lad
far.
in a company called Brooklyn Union.
Brooklyn Union Gas.
Brooklyn Union Gas, going back to those days. Spent 50 years in the energy business, and I had the good fortune of eventually becoming the CEO of Keyspan.
You were always one of the
National Grid.
cool CEOs, meaning you meet all these guys who run all these companies and everything, and you were just one of the great guys. You walked in, hi, I'm Bob. You know, you didn't come with an entourage, you didn't come with an attitude. Here you were running this huge company, and you really, you get down in the trenches. I always like that.
Thank you, Frank. It's very nice of you
I
to
like
say
my
that.
gas too, because it's just there, and I'm telling you,
We want to make sure it stays there.
I don't
Frank.
want to offend my friend over at the Oil Heat Institute, but this year I think I'm doing better.
Well, that's an important thing to mention.
Well,
I think it was
sure,
mentioned. This is a fuel-neutral program, so that this money will go to...
It'll go either way. Whatever you
either way.
have, if you
It's
have
based
oil,
on the need,
yeah.
it'll go to oil. If it's electric, it'll go to electric, and naturally it'll go to gas.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a fuel-neutral program. And that's one of the things that United Way does,
Yeah.
make sure that it goes to the people who need it.
Most homes on Long Island heat with oil.
That's
Most
correct.
businesses on Long Island heat with oil. Michael Cooney, let's get some addresses out here for people to mail. If they got the little envelope with their bill, you put a little check in there and you mail it back in that little envelope. You don't mail it with your bill.
No, don't.
There's a
mail
little
it.
envelope, a little tiny one. It's like the size of a business card.
You can send it to 819 Grand Boulevard, Deer Park,
819 Grand Boulevard, in Deer Park.
New York, 11729.
819 Grand Boulevard, Deer Park, 11729. That's the offices of the United Way of Long Island.
Correct. And if you need help, you can call 211 or toll-free number 1-888-774-7633.
That's Long Island's information and referral line for emergency heating needs. And of course, if you want to contribute, you can go to unitedwayli.org. You can use a credit card, and you can make a donation that way. What else is United Way of Long Island up to these days? I know you have so many programs, including, as Bob alluded to earlier, at the National Grid Foundation, educational programs with kids. I mean, you've got your hand in so many worthwhile things.
You know, interestingly, Frank, this is our 50th anniversary of serving children and families on Long Island.
50th.
50th
Happy anniversary. You and the Beatles.
That's
That's true.
and historically.
And G.I. Joe.
Historically, we've helped to fund well over 100 agencies throughout Nassau and Suffolk County, and specifically, we fund programs within those agencies that increase access to health care, increase financial independence, or educate children and youth to hopefully succeed in school and to graduate on time. But we also run some programs directly ourselves, and Bob was talking about the educational focus of the foundation, and we have a program called Youth Build, which teaches high school dropouts how to build green, energy-efficient houses. There's a GED component in the program so that they get their GED, but I think more importantly is they actually learn a skill that is in demand on Long Island and hopefully will be in demand for many, many years to come. We also run a similar program for returning veterans where we train them to be weatherization experts in terms of installing weatherization, doing home energy audits, things like that. We run a community schools program, which is an after-school program in both Freeport and Westbury, and the purpose of that program is to intervene at a time in kids' lives where the intervention will enhance the possibility of the child graduating on time. So as you said, we do have our hands involved in a lot of different areas.
We're a better place for it, too. UnitedWayLI.org will give you the details, at least a synopsis on all these programs. UnitedWayLI.org. Teresa Rignati running the organization this year. I've worked with some of her predecessors because people do move on and things change and so forth. And I've always been impressed by the leadership at United Way. Never met anybody in that position who didn't look like they really had a grasp for it and worked tirelessly on it. I mean, it's just...
We've been very, very fortunate. Teresa's got a great vision. She's a great fundraiser, expert at really building and maintaining relationships. And previously, you may have remembered Pat Foy, who now runs
Sure, yeah.
the Port Authority. So we've been blessed with some.
I go back
really
longer than
bright-
that, but we don't need to go there. It'll upset Bob. It'll upset me.
Not at all.
Bob Kittel, I have to ask you, because I've been talking about the Advanced Energy Research and Technology Center at Stony Brook University, which sounds ever so hoi polloi. What do you do there?
Well, what we do there, in the simplest terms, energy research. Looking at all forms of energy. How do we produce it? How do we deliver it? How do we make the customers use it more efficiently? We look at solar, we look at wind, battery storage. So it's all the new types of technologies, which are really going to change the energy paradigm going forward. So that's our focus. It's a nice transition for me, having worked in the utility business all my life, to now being able to help develop new technologies, which could make us use energy more smarter.
I thought you retired when you left National Grid. You don't seem to be retired to me.
Well, I found a few things to do in my retirement years.
We're the better for it. Let's go over some of the numbers here, Michael, so people can learn more about Project Warmth. If they think they may be eligible for it, they can learn more about it by going to UnitedWayLI.org, correct?
Correct.
If they're more comfortable calling, they can call 631. Am I giving away your number, or
No,
whose number
they-
am I giving
you know,
away?
If they're looking for assistance, they can call 211 or 1-888-774-7633.
Almost gave away Michael's desk phone. It would have only run for a few days. It would have
Absolutely.
died down. It would have died down eventually. But the bottom line, if you need this help, if you're facing the cutoff of your heating source, take that notice, take as many financial records as you can put together, and go to one of those organizations, the list of which is at UnitedWayLI.org. Sit down, spend a few minutes. You don't have to make an appointment. Walk in, sit down, talk to somebody, fill out the application. A day or two, get some help.
Certainly, if they meet the eligibility criteria.
Well, of course, if they're eligible, sure.
absolutely. The oil should be delivered within 2 days. The check will go out to Grid and cease whatever plans they had for terminating service, et cetera, et cetera. So, as I said before, the program works very, very quickly. We recognize that people are in crisis. We recognize that it is cold. And, interestingly, Frank, even when the weather warms up in the spring to 40 or 50, 55 degrees, it's still cold in a house
Oh yeah,
that doesn't have
especially
heat.
at night. And it's right. It's always cold in a house that doesn't have
There's
heat.
kind of
yeah.
some misperceptions that, once the sun is shining and it's a little warmer, there is
Or
a
we
problem.
reach that point in the
But-
calendar where they
right.
say it's spring.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't.
Right. This problem persists through most of the year. So
The project is Project Warmth of the United Way of Long Island, UnitedWayLI.org. If you get that little envelope with your electric bill or your gas bill,
gas bill.
put a little check in there and know that that money goes to the supplier of the fuel or the gas. It does not go to the individual. So the money goes directly to where it's going to do what it's intended to do.
Frank, I should say that the operating costs for Project Warmth are about 8%. So 92% of
92 cents out of a dollar.
goes back to an oil provider to help families who
That's
are in
pretty
need
good.
of assistance.
He is Michael Cooney, Director of Special Projects at United Way of Long Island. My thanks also to Bob Kittel, Chairman of the Board at the Advanced Energy Research and Technology Center at Stony Brook University, former U.S. Chairman and local CEO for National Grid. Thank you both for coming in today and telling us about Project Warmth. The good news is it'll be here next year, and the good news is we'll talk about it again because the need will always be there. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Frank.
you, Frank.
Folks, part 2 of the program is coming up.
Hello? Oh, hi, Melanie. I was at the hospital. My mom passed away. Oh, we were expecting it, and it was good that we could be with her. But you know what really made us all feel better? We agreed to donate her organs and tissues. Mom had enrolled in the New York State Organ and Tissue Donor Registry, and she told us about it. The registry? Well, it's a new way to let people know you want to be a donor. You can register a lot of ways, even when you get your driver's license. Donating has turned our loss into something positive. Her heart's going to a 35-year-old guy with 3 kids, and her corneas will help 2 people to see again. It's easier knowing that we're helping others to live.
Organ and tissue donation is the most precious gift of all. Life. Pass it on. Enroll in the New York State Organ and Tissue Donor Registry. It's easy and it's confidential. Call toll-free 1-877-752-3175. That's 1-877-752-3175.